The heartbreaking and horrifying new evidence in a case we've been following for months. For the first time, we're hearing those interrogation tapes. 12-year-old girls calmly describing why they lured one of their best friends into the woods, stabbing her 19 times and leaving her to die. All of it, they say, for Slender Man. And David, you spent a lot of time with that little survivor.
We've been following this journey, as you know, Elizabeth, a brave journey, and no one could have imagined what we would hear in these interrogations revealed in court just this week. A country, a community now reliving the horror, stunned that those two girls could explain in such a matter-of-fact way why they did this.
Tonight, like much of this country, it is a snowy and frigid Friday night in one American town, Waukesha, Wisconsin, where this evening an entire community is stunned all over again after hearing this week for the first time from two girls their own voices about the night they allegedly lured their friend into the woods and repeatedly stabbed her, police say, leaving her to die.
She handed me the knife and told me to stab her.
2020 has been following the case every step of the way. It's a horror story that began more than 8 months ago. A mother and father, like so many parents across this country, sending their daughter on a sleepover. At the time, Peyton Leichner was just 12, and her parents knew her friend well, Morgan Geyser and another 12-year-old, all of them celebrating Morgan's birthday. Why would this night be any different? But it was.
On Saturday, May 31st, 2014, a 12-year-old girl was stabbed.
Tonight, the explosive new interrogation tapes just released. As we take you back inside a case that horrified parents across this country.
Two 12-year-old girls charged with viciously attacking their friend.
They stabbed their friend 19 times.
Those girls, the suspects, in their own words, in the hours after they were taken into custody. It is the first time we hear from Morgan Geyser talking about her friend Peyton, who they left in the woods.
It was my only friend for a long time because...
Why would you hurt your only friend?
It was necessary.
And for the first time, we also hear from Anissa Wire, too. Her face blurred, the judge releasing this footage with the requirement not to show their faces during the interrogations.
I said, I'm scared. I was told that if I didn't do something, my family would be in danger.
Her family in danger? Who and what were those girls so scared of? We explore that right here tonight. While parents everywhere might be saying, not my child, tonight, you're about to hear how all of this began as an ordinary slumber party. 3 girls and someone else. An unknown figure getting into that party too. A fictional character from the internet named Slender Man, who so many parents had never even heard of. We have spent months in that town and have documented one family's journey. 2 parents helping their daughter recover.
She was forced to go into the woods.
Into the woods.
From the hero who found her at the edge of the woods.
She was laying right here.
The doctors who saw how close to death she came.
The knife cut through the tissue.
And the school where Peyton has now returned. One family's stunning journey about to play out tonight right before your eyes. And just this week, 2 parents who heard for the first time from the friends who police say attacked their daughter.
It was a Friday night, right?
It was a Friday night.
Their daughter Peyton had been looking forward to it for weeks.
You remember how excited she was that Friday
Oh my
afternoon.
gosh, she was so excited.
And had she gone on sleepovers before?
Oh yeah. And this was just her best friend's birthday party.
Another Friday night.
So she was gonna go roller skating, have some pizza, and spend the night at her best friend's house.
Yeah, they were probably gonna watch movies.
And so you thought this
And
is
play American Girl. Peyton brought her American Girl doll with her.
She brought her American Girl.
But Peyton would not come home the next morning.
Do you think Peyton had any idea?
No, she had absolutely no idea.
She was blindsided.
Her parents blindsided too. Friday night, they send their daughter off. Saturday morning, Mom is in the backyard.
Joe was at work. I heard the doorbell ring and the dog bark. And it was a Saturday morning at like 9:30, 9:45. And around the side of the house, up over the deck, came a uniformed officer. The first thing that goes through my mind is, so something has happened to somebody that I love, because that's the only reason a uniformed officer and a detective comes to your house on a Saturday morning.
She would slowly begin to piece together what had happened in the 16 hours since Peyton had left for that sleepover. It is unthinkable. The first moment anyone would begin to learn of that horror was this call to 911.
911. I'm transferring over a caller on Big Bend.
After she crawled out of the woods. And just listen, at first, the operators cannot believe what they are hearing.
Came upon a 12-year-old female. She appears to be stabbed.
She appears to be what?
Stabbed.
Stabbed?
Correct.
Greg Steinberg was riding his bike that morning on a path that had actually been chained off. It was pure chance that he came this way.
Sir, are you with her right now?
Yes.
Is she awake?
She's awake.
Is there any bleeding going on?
Her clothing has got blood on it.
Okay, and you found her and she was just laying there?
Yeah.
On that call, you can actually hear Greg comforting Peyton.
Somebody's coming. Any minute. Who did that to you?
And you were biking by and she says to you what?
Could you help me, please? I've been stabbed multiple times. I quick got out my cell phone. I was shaking and dialed 911. I just stayed with the 911 operator, and I offered her water because I had a water bottle on my bike. The other thing she said was she's having trouble breathing.
And she's right here laying on the grass.
He watches as the ambulance rushes her away, the hospital less than 4 miles away from that path.
And when you looked at her, it was immediately apparent she'd been stabbed multiple times.
Yeah, to her chest and abdomen and arm and leg.
Doctors concerned she might not survive, and her mother, Stacy, has just been told Peyton has been rushed to the hospital. She's also been told it was her best friend, Morgan, who did this. She calls her husband.
And I said, Peyton's been stabbed. Morgan stabbed Peyton. You need to come home. They need to rush Peyton into surgery. So then I really lost it.
So you got in the car?
Got in the car.
Minutes later, arriving.
So I walked into the trauma room that she was in, and she was pale as a ghost. She was terrified. She was crying. She couldn't breathe.
But she saw you there.
She saw me, and she put her hand out, and I rushed over to her, and I put my arms around her, and I laid next to her, and I hugged her, and I said, "You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine." But I could see that she was covered. Her arms and her legs and her abdomen, they were covered in stab wounds.
They pull her away from her daughter, and she can soon hear the nurses counting.
And all I hear is, there's 5 on her arm, there's 7 on her leg, and I'm thinking, what, 7? What? And one of the nurses says, all right, I count 19, and then the second nurse said, I count 19 as well. 19? What? There's no way.
There were so many stab wounds, it took 2 nurses to count them, 19 in all. And her little girl is now being raced down the hall.
Because then they took her into surgery.
Then they took her into surgery.
Did you say anything to Peyton as they were wheeling her away?
That I loved her and that she would be okay.
But there was something else Peyton's mother was thinking at the same time.
Morgan didn't do this, is what's going through my head. There's no way. There's no way that's what happened. Morgan is 12.
But that's exactly what investigators believe, that Morgan and the only other girl who was invited to that sleepover, Anissa Wire, did this. But they were nowhere to be found.
They had run away and the police hadn't found them yet. And we just knew that Peyton told us Morgan stabbed her and the police hadn't been able to find the girls.
And in fact, police believe those girls were walking.
Yeah.
And tonight, right here, we finally hear from the detectives, the investigators, who searched for those girls, who found them. Detective Michelle Trussoni on the stand just this week.
And once they left that wooded area, they started walking. They could hear the sirens coming.
They were going to find a mansion in the woods.
Oh, the mansion, yeah, the mansion in the woods. They were going to the Nicolay Forest because they believed that there was a mansion there that Slenderman lived in.
And this week, we heard the interrogation. Just listen to Morgan, her own voice, her own words, acknowledging who they were looking for.
We tried to find Slenderman.
Trying to find who?
Slender.
Who's Slenderman?
He's this tall, faceless man who preys on children.
A character named Slenderman, who police say they were hoping to impress, all while their 12-year-old friend Peyton is in the OR fighting off death. When we come back, the doctors who discover it is worse than anyone thought. We're with the surgeon who saves her.
Less than a millimeter.
Between living and dying.
Yes.
Tonight, you'll hear much more from them in their own words. The hours of interrogation tapes just revealed. Why did they do this? What was discovered on their computers, their cell phones? And later tonight, right here, our time with the survivor, Peyton, and a brand new milestone 1 week ago tonight. A young girl you will never forget. Waukesha, Wisconsin, just outside Milwaukee. Tonight, in the depths of a brutal winter blast, they're also dealing with something else. The gruesome new details emerging just this week about a horrific tale that began to play out on a Saturday morning this past May. A birthday sleepover with 3 12-year-olds the night before. And now 2 girls are missing. The other, Peyton Leichner, has somehow crawled out of the woods covered in stab wounds, 19 of them. She is wheeled into the operating room. And just this week, more than 8 months after that moment, the pretrial hearing. And we're now hearing from the detectives who tried to talk to her the moment she was brought in.
It seemed that it hurt too much for her to talk. She had a hard time breathing.
Outside that hospital, in that town,
a major search by ground.
These are the woods where the stabbing
Police are still on the scene
a
here.
frantic search for the 2 missing, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire.
2 12-year-old girls stabbing their friend nearly to death is unimaginable anytime, but especially for a safe community like the city of Waukesha.
So unimaginable that even the brother of one of those missing girls at first confused, fearing for her safety too, showing reporters photos of his sister, asking, have you seen her?
That's her, that's Anissa. She's been missing for I don't know how long now.
While back at the hospital, where they ask us to put on scrubs to enter the OR, the surgeon, John Kellerman, is about to discover just how much damage has been done. He tells me about one of the stab wounds to the heart.
The knife came directly down at this point where this large branch was coming off of this major artery and cut through the tissue overlying it so that the vessels were totally exposed by this injury.
The knife cut through the tissue, but not the artery itself.
Exactly. The knife stopped at the wall of the artery.
And had it not?
Had it not, she would have had a major heart attack from the amount of bleeding and probably died within a minute or 2.
That close to death, but they were now saving her life. While the hunt for the other 2 girls is in high gear, every agency in the area searching.
We had the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, the City of Waukesha Police Department, New Berlin Police Department, City of Waukesha Fire Department, and Flight for Life, all scouring that area.
Then, nearly 5 hours after Peyton crawled out of those woods, the 2 other girls are found. They were right here along Interstate 94, heading out of Waukesha. A knife with a 5-inch blade found in one of the girls' bags. And just this week in court, we heard from the officer describing Anissa Wire the moment she was taken into custody.
I asked her to show me her hands, and she complied. And then I asked her to walk towards my voice. I noticed there was some staining on her sweatshirt around the abdomen area.
And Anissa, in her own words, describing the moment she was found.
I said, I'm scared. I was told that if I didn't do something, my family would be in danger.
Neither girl puts up a fight. They would soon be questioned. And we now hear Morgan describing the victim, Peyton, as one of her closest friends.
She was my best friend since 4th grade.
Who was?
Peyton.
So why did you pick Peyton?
I didn't pick her.
And as Morgan is being questioned, that friend Peyton is coming out of surgery.
And when that surgeon comes out, what did he reveal?
He said, so we had to crack her chest. It was awful to hear that she had to go through that.
How close do you think she was to losing her?
If the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived.
Human hair. What is that, a millimeter?
Less than a millimeter.
Between living and dying?
Yes.
Where on earth do you think she got the strength to crawl out of those woods?
Well, we asked her, and she said, I wanted to live.
At first, Peyton couldn't talk, writing to communicate.
Do you remember the first message she wrote?
I want to go home.
I want to go home.
When can I go home?
And has Peyton talked at all about the horror of that moment?
She told me she was scared. But the first time I asked her what she remembered about what happened, she said, all I remember is the pain.
The pain.
And they would reveal to me there was something else she asked.
Did they get them? We told her they were found and the police have them.
And as a dad in that moment, how hard was that?
Harder than I would have ever been able to imagine. This is my little girl who's laying there, and the only thing that I could tell her at the time to make her feel better was that the police have them and
she was safe with us.
His daughter terrified of the two girls who were her friends.
How well did you know these two other girls?
They were best
friends since about fourth grade.
Fourth grade is when we met Morgan for the first time.
They say Peyton would talk to Morgan every night on the phone.
Were there ever any red flags?
They would have little arguments, but every 12-year-old girl has little arguments.
The other 12-year-old, Anissa Wire, they had not met, but they say Peyton knew her from school. And as Joe and Stacy reassure their daughter that the girls had been found, police were questioning them. What did they do to their friend? And even more disturbing, why did they do it? Tonight, Morgan, for the first time in those interrogation tapes, seeming to waver.
I didn't want to do this.
What did you do with him?
Because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't.
And Anissa also fearing what would happen if they didn't do it.
I was really scared, knowing that Slender could easily kill my whole family in 3 seconds.
And just listen to the detective who was questioning her.
When Morgan said to you that if we don't do this for Slender, our families and loved ones are going to be killed, do you honestly believe that? Well, yeah.
When we come back, the bone-chilling plan emerges.
They were going to put duct tape over her mouth.
The plan was to murder her. She wasn't supposed to make it out alive.
They told police they wanted to kill the victim, so people would know that Slender Man was real.
Who is this mysterious fictional character born on the internet? As we hear from those girls now in their own words about what it was that drove them to do this. And we see the alarming images found from inside one of the girls' bedrooms. Right near the dolls, the bed, the clothes, there was something else.
"20 years ago next week, it became a searing American flashpoint. The verdict in the O.J. Simpson murder trial. That courtroom saga was broadcast all day, every day to an audience of millions. But you never heard Simpson speak. He never testified. Tonight, you will see O.J. Simpson in an entirely different way. You will see him forced to answer questions about what happened the night his ex-wife and her friend were killed from VHS tapes waiting in that underground garage. You'll hear from everyone, from Kris Jenner to O.J.'s friends, and from those who swore to bring him to some kind of justice. Will what you hear tonight change the way you look at O.J. Simpson? Take a look and see.
Attention all units and stations. Attempt to locate 187 suspect.
June 17th, 1994.
Plate 3 Delta Hotel. Subject's last name is Simpson.
It's 7 p.m. on Friday night.
At this moment, a car chase is going on.
We now go to a special report.
I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters. Let's immediately go to a picture in Los Angeles. We're interrupting 2020.
And every single television network
we are looking at pictures of Al Cowling's cars
is fixated on a single image.
Down there on the ground is a white Ford Bronco.
Dozens of police cars are in pursuit.
In the number 3 lane at approximately 30 miles an hour.
An armada of news choppers broadcasting live to 95 million people.
There are about 15 California Highway Patrol cars.
In the back seat is O.J. Simpson, beloved sports hero and movie star, with a loaded gun pointed at his own head.
It was mesmerizing.
People are stopped alongside the road.
You could not stop watching. O.J. Simpson is in a Bronco.
Driving slowly.
Driving slowly with people on the sides of the road.
Waving and calling out his name.
It was crazy.
His friend, A.C. Cowlings, is behind the wheel.
This is A.C. I have O.J. in the car. He's still alive, but he got a gun to his head.
After a 2-hour chase, the Bronco pulls into Simpson's Brentwood mansion.
Here he is now. Here's the car pulling into the driveway.
Simpson is arrested and charged with murder. It was 5 days earlier when his ex-wife, Nicole Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman were discovered murdered. Nicole's throat slashed. She was nearly decapitated outside her condominium. It was news that spawned a media frenzy.
The body of 34-year-old Nicole Brown Simpson, ex-wife of O.J. Simpson, was found after midnight.
Tanya Brown is Nicole's youngest sister.
All I remember is turning on the news that morning, and there was a white sheet over Nicole, and all I remember is my mom saying, "That's my kid." I remember just kind of falling to the floor. I don't know if I screamed out loud. I felt like I was screaming. Everything started to spiral.
Kim Goldman's brother Ron had been stabbed more than 20 times. His father, Fred Goldman.
It was devastating. He was always a good kid. He was fun. He had a good sense of humor, always laughing.
He had a good heart.
He had a good heart.
O.J. Simpson was the prime suspect from
moment one
in this case.
As police gather evidence, things are looking bad for O.J. Simpson, and he knows it. He seeks refuge at his friend lawyer Robert Kardashian's house. Kardashian later told author and filmmaker Lawrence Schiller what happened in the hours before that infamous Bronco chase.
He was sitting there with a gun and his pictures of his kids and of Nicole. And then O.J. said, "I'm gonna kill myself in this room." And I said, "You can't." I said, "This is my daughter's bedroom."
He first wanted to kill himself in Kim Kardashian's bedroom.
Right, Kimmy's bedroom, yeah.
And Robert said, you can't kill yourself here. My little girl Kim sleeps here.
Yeah.
I can't have my little girl in this bedroom, and every time I come in here, I'm gonna see your body.
Simpson would later explain in his deposition why he then left in the white Bronco.
You left the Kardashian residence in Mr. Cowling's Bronco, correct?
Correct.
And did you tell anyone that you were going?
No,
Why did you leave?
because I wanted to go to Nicole's grave.
He says he wanted to kill himself at her final resting place. It is an image of Simpson that for the public that revered him seemed unfathomable. He was an American icon, his story the American dream. He grew up in the projects of San Francisco and became a record-setting NFL running back and Hall of Famer. And then a lovable hit on the silver screen. With his looks and his charm,
Here's a few tips on how to get out of an airport fast.
he became a master pitchman.
Go, Juice, go!
He had endorsements, and he was very well loved by everyone who he ran into.
Kris Jenner is a ubiquitous television personality today, but in 1994, she is the ex-wife of Robert Kardashian and the mother of 4 young Kardashians who will eventually achieve their own modest measure of fame. She and Robert were close friends with O.J. Simpson.
OJ was one of the groomsmen at my wedding.
Kris helped O.J. call the beautiful blonde waitress named Nicole Brown that he had met at a Beverly Hills restaurant.
Nicole was how old at the time?
18.
And you were how old?
I believe 28, 29 maybe.
29?
Yeah.
Were you married?
Yes.
But 2 years later, he was divorced, and in 1985, he and Nicole were married and had 2 children, Sydney and Justin.
We all bonded. There was great chemistry, it was great friendship, a great life.
Nicole's sister Tanya was just 7 years old when Nicole met O.J. What were your memories of O.J.? I mean, you called him Uncle O.J.
The OJ I knew, he was fun, laid back, kind, sweet. I never heard them fight.
But there were secrets behind the red carpet smiles. By 1992, they are divorced. And by 1995, the O.J. known for his charm was in a courtroom charged with murder.
There's Nicole, and there's Goldman.
The scene outside the courtroom got crazy. Every day,
Look, here it is.
there were people hawking items to buy. There were baseball caps with the names of all the lawyers on them.
Seriously?
There was a Judge Ito Jello mold.
A Judge Ito Jello mold?
And there was screaming and yelling and...
OJ did it!
Inside the courtroom, prosecutors try to prove that O.J. Simpson was a serial abuser, violently beating Nicole during their marriage of 7 years. Their evidence includes these photographs of a bruised and beaten Nicole, and there are the harrowing 911 calls she made asking for help.
911 emergency. Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back. Please. Well, okay, what does he look like? He's O.J. Simpson. I think you know his record. Could you just send somebody over here? He's going nuts. Just stay on the line. I don't want to stay on the line. He's going to beat the... Wait a minute, wait.
Her voice pleading for somebody to come to her house, that was so shocking to me because I had never heard that before.
Lost in all the attention paid to the Simpsons' turbulent marriage is the other murder victim.
He was always referred to as the other victim, and that really drove me bananas. And I remember watching the television, always yelling, his name is Ron, he's got a name.
He had a name and a job at the restaurant at which Nicole had dinner with her family the night of the murders. Ron was returning a pair of glasses that had been left behind to Nicole's house. His father believes he arrived just at the time Nicole was under attack.
He could have run
Right, but
away.
he didn't. It wouldn't have been who Ron was. He wouldn't have run away. He would have wanted to help.
The Goldmans are convinced the case against O.J. Simpson is a slam dunk. In addition to the history of domestic abuse, there is an avalanche of forensic evidence connecting Simpson to the crime scene. A suspicious cut on his left hand, his blood, his hair, clothing fibers, and DNA are all at the murder scene, along with a size 12 shoe print, OJ's size. And in his Bronco, blood consistent with Ron and Nicole's blood. And in his bedroom, a pair of socks with Nicole's blood.
And the results of the analysis of that blood confirms Orenthal James Simpson took her very life.
Every piece of evidence pointed to OJ. There was no identifiable other suspects except for OJ.
Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to be a long trial, as you can
In what's been called the trial of the century, O.J. Simpson seemed to face an unsurmountable battle.
I've never seen so much evidence against someone in a case that's gone to trial as there was against O.J. Simpson, ever.
Enter the so-called Dream Team, Simpson's all-star defense.
That'll be interesting, I think.
Including Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, Alan Dershowitz, and of course his most trusted ally, Robert Kardashian. They shift the focus to the Los Angeles Police Department. The strategy?
Mark Furman?
Accuse the police of framing Simpson, mishandling, even planting evidence.
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case? Have you ever falsified a police report? Was the testimony that you gave truthful?
It is an argument that resonates with the mostly black jury, especially the explosive audio of lead detective Mark Furman spouting racist slurs like this.
First thing, anything out of a mouth for the first 5 or 6 sentences is a lie.
Mark Furman is a lying, perjuring, genocidal racist.
The defense sent the jurors' heads spinning.
The defense, in essence, put bad policemen, racist policemen, on trial.
They put the whole police department on trial.
Simpson's attorneys even tried to put his slain ex-wife's reputation on trial, portraying her as a party girl.
These ladies would go out 2, 3, 4 nights a week and stay out till 5 o'clock in the morning. They do whatever they would do.
Simpson did the same in his deposition.
I was told about them all doing drugs at a place called a Monkey Bar.
Mr. Darden?
But perhaps the defense's biggest win is the prosecution's biggest blunder. They ask him to try on the bloody glove found at the scene of the crime. Nearly everyone knows what happens next.
You have any problem placing the glove on his hand?
What were you thinking as you watched this spectacle?
I think the word spectacle is perfect. He had latex gloves on. He was trying on a glove that had been soaked in blood, and he would hold the glove, and he did this. It wasn't yanking at the glove, it was... So, of course, he couldn't get it on.
Author Larry Schiller says there may be another more cunning explanation, that Simpson had arthritis, swelling of the joints, and stopped taking his anti-inflammatory medicine a month before trying on the gloves.
Nobody knows whether it made his hands a little bigger or not.
That bloody glove becomes a rhyming rallying cry for the defense.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
With those iconic words ringing in their ears, the jury makes its decision after nearly 9 months of testimony and not even 4 hours of deliberation.
On this shift, we'll take you right through the verdict.
The jury in the O.J. Simpson case has reached a verdict.
Mr. Simpson has now come back to the courtroom.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of...
Tell me about that moment.
Shock, disbelief. How could they possibly heard all of that evidence, and in a handful of hours said, not guilty.
Kim Goldman's sobs fill the courtroom. This is now an indelible image from that time.
Yeah, I'm sad for her. I remember that feeling.
What was the feeling?
Betrayed and just devastated. I just felt like we let my brother down.
Kris Jenner, Robert Kardashian's ex-wife, remembers watching his face as the verdict was announced.
I think he was shocked. He was definitely stunned. I mean, you could look at his face and see it, known him my entire life. I know that, like, he was floored that that was the verdict.
Coffin's full, the mindless mass.
For the nation, the reaction to the verdict is sharply divided along racial lines. You could see white Americans shocked and in disbelief, contrasted with the jubilation of black Americans celebrating the acquittal of O.J. Simpson.
I think a lot of African Americans were focusing less on the evidence against O.J. Simpson and more on the fact that they felt that this case exposed ongoing problems with policing. And as a result, they didn't want these police officers to win.
What was it like to see O.J. Simpson walk out of that courtroom a free man?
Disgusting.
And take a look at this video of an impromptu celebration at Simpson's house. A jubilant Simpson rejoicing at his acquittal.
Yes!
Here he is hugging best friend and Bronco driver A.C. Cowling. He even mocks live television news reports.
Prosecution team, let the killers get away.
For Kim Goldman, the sight of O.J. Simpson as a free man is unbearable. One day, she is driving through a parking lot and stops when she sees him.
And I sat there and I revved the engine and I white-knuckled the steering wheel and I thought, oh my gosh, nobody's around. I could totally take him out.
But instead of vengeance, the Goldman family decides to seek justice again in, of all places, another courtroom. They file a wrongful death lawsuit against Simpson. In a surprise, they lay all their hopes on low-profile 42-year-old Daniel Petrocelli, a business attorney. This was not your area of expertise, wrongful death.
I was not a criminal lawyer.
This press conference is his first time speaking to reporters ever.
We think that when all is said and done...
You describe having an anxiety attack.
A full-scale anxiety attack. I couldn't swallow. That's when I knew I was in over my head.
Before the news cameras, perhaps.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony...
But when the deposition cameras start rolling...
To help you God?
I do.
Petrocelli is in his natural habitat, locked on his target.